I secretly redirected our pension payments to a new account without telling a soul. The very next morning, our son and daughter-in-law pounded on the door, screaming in rage, "You ruined us! Give us access right now, or you'll regret it." My wife and I just smiled at each other, and exactly 1 hour later, they were both arrested right in front of our eyes. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. My name is Victor Quinn. I'm 68 years old, and for the last 42 of those years, I've been married to the smartest woman I've ever met. I spent 4 decades as an insurance adjuster in Phoenix, Arizona. You learn things in that job: how to spot patterns, how to follow money trails, how people lie when they think you won't notice. Those skills kept me employed. They also kept me sharp. But Dorothy, she's the one who keeps me honest. We met in the university library when I was 24. She was working there part-time while studying education. I walked in looking for a book on risk assessment, walked out with her phone number instead. Took me 3 tries to ask her out. She said later she was waiting to see if I'd give up. I didn't. 44 years of marriage teaches you things. We finish each other's sentences. We can read each other's moods from across a room. And when one of us sees trouble coming, the other one feels it too. Our house on East Camelback Road isn't much to look at. Ranch style, 1-story, bought it in '89. But it's ours, paid off. Dorothy keeps a garden in back. I've got my ham radio set up in the spare room. Call sign K7VQ. Late at night, when the atmosphere's right, I can talk to operators in Australia, Japan, places I've never been. Dorothy says I'm talking to strangers halfway around the world but can't hear what's right in front of me. She wasn't wrong. Our son Quentin is 39. When he was little, he'd wait by the window for me to come home from work. The second my car pulled up, he'd run out, arms wide. I'd scoop him up and he'd tell me about his day in one long, breathless sentence. 7 years ago, he married Kimberly Rogers. That's when everything changed. Dorothy saw it first. She always does. "Watch how she looks at our house," she whispered during their 3rd visit as a couple. I watched. Kimberly's eyes swept over our modest furniture, our simple kitchen, our worn carpets. Her smile stayed perfect, but her eyes were calculating. "She's measuring," Dorothy said later, "seeing what we're worth." I laughed it off, called her paranoid. Dorothy just looked at me with those patient eyes. "You'll see." Kimberly was beautiful, still is. Yoga instructor, or at least that's what she calls herself when she actually shows up to teach a class. Mostly she posts photos on social media. Perfect poses, perfect outfits, perfect captions about wellness and gratitude. Meanwhile, they were renting a villa in Scottsdale they couldn't afford. Quentin became someone I didn't recognize. The kid who used to call every Sunday stopped calling. The son who'd dropped by just to check on us started making excuses. When they did visit, Kimberly did most of the talking. Quentin just nodded along. "He's afraid of her," Dorothy said one night after they'd left. "He's just trying to keep the peace," I replied. She shook her head. "No, he's afraid of what she'll do if he disagrees." 3 months ago, Quentin came over alone, sat at our kitchen table, coffee going cold in his hands. "Dad, I want to help you and Mom with your finances." I set down my newspaper. "Help how?" "You're getting older. Bills are complicated. Online banking, automatic payments. I know it's not your generation's thing." He smiled, that old Quentin smile. "Let me handle it for you. I'll make sure everything's paid on time." Dorothy stood in the doorway, dish towel in her hands. Our eyes met. I saw the warning there, but he was my son. "All right," I said. "We'll give you access to the main account for bill payments." Dorothy's jaw tightened, but she didn't say anything. Not then. Quentin hugged me when he left. "Thanks, Dad. You won't regret this." Dorothy and I sat on the back porch that night. She was quiet for a long time. "This was a mistake," she finally said. "He's trying to help." "Is he?" She turned to me. "Or is she making him ask?" I wanted to argue, wanted to defend my son. But Dorothy had this way of seeing through people. Comes from spending 30 years working with children. You learn to spot the truth behind the words. 2 weeks later, she came to me with our bank statement. "Victor," her voice was careful, too careful. "We need to talk." We sat at the kitchen table. She spread the pages in front of me. Her finger traced down the withdrawals. "These don't match our bills," she said quietly. I looked, really looked. She was right. Our monthly expenses shouldn't be that high. I pulled out the previous month's statement, same pattern. Withdrawals that didn't make sense. Amounts that were just slightly off. Dorothy watched me. I already checked. These aren't our utility bills. These aren't our insurance payments. Then what are they? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. We both knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. Dorothy lay beside me in the dark. We should ask him, I whispered. Not yet. Her hand found mine. First, we need to know how bad it is. How bad it could be, she squeezed my fingers. Trust me. After 44 years, I do. Dorothy has this habit. She documents everything. Old letters, photos, family records. She's been building a genealogy archive for 20 years. Filing, organizing, cross-referencing. I used to tease her about it. Who's going to read all that? I'd ask. Turns out, we needed those skills. The next morning, she was already dressed when I woke up. I'm getting copies of all our bank statements, she said. Every transaction for the last 6 months. Dorothy, don't, she held up her hand. Don't tell me I'm overreacting. Don't tell me to trust him. Just let me do this. I nodded. What else could I say? She came home 3 hours later with a manila folder thick with papers. We sat at the kitchen table. She'd already gone through them, highlighted certain lines. Her system was color-coded. Yellow for suspicious, pink for definitely wrong. There was a lot of pink. $47,300, she said. Her voice was steady, but I saw her hands tremble. In 6 months. I stared at the numbers, tried to make sense of them. My brain, trained to analyze insurance fraud, to spot patterns in claims, couldn't quite process that my son was stealing from us. Maybe there's an explanation, I said weakly. Dorothy looked at me, just looked, and I knew. We both knew. That evening we sat on the back porch with coffee. Our ritual for 40 years. Evening coffee, watching the sun go down over the desert. Usually we talked about small things. The weather, the neighbors, what to have for dinner. Tonight was different. We need help, Dorothy said. Who? Jerry Mills. I thought about my old friend. We'd worked together on insurance cases for over 30 years before he went to law school. Jerry specialized in financial fraud now. Family law, elder abuse cases. You think it's that serious? Dorothy set down her cup. I think we need to know exactly what we're dealing with before we do anything. I called Jerry the next morning. Didn't tell him everything over the phone, just said we needed to talk. He cleared his afternoon schedule. In his office, we laid it all out. Dorothy's highlighted statements, the pattern of withdrawals, the timing, always right after our pension and Social Security deposits hit the account. Jerry went quiet. That focused quiet he gets when he's thinking like a lawyer. How long has he had access? He asked. 3 months, I said. And you noticed? After 2 weeks? Dorothy nodded. Jerry pulled out a legal pad. I need you to request full statements. 3 years back. 3 years? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Quentin only got access 3 months ago. But Kimberly's been in the picture for 7. Jerry looked at me over his glasses. Trust me, Victor. 3 years. 2 days later, Dorothy went to Wells Fargo. She talked to the manager, Yvonne Chen. Yvonne had helped us set up our accounts 15 years ago. She knew us. Mrs. Quinn, Yvonne said carefully when Dorothy asked for the extended records, is everything all right? Dorothy smiled, that warm librarian smile. Just doing some financial planning. Yvonne didn't look convinced, but she processed the request. These will take about a week. That's fine, Dorothy said. We're not going anywhere. That week was the longest of my life. Dorothy and I didn't talk about it much. What was there to say? We both knew what we'd find. We just didn't know how bad it would be. The statements arrived on a Thursday. Dorothy picked them up. I was in my radio room when she came home. Heard her footsteps stop in the hallway. Knew what that meant. I found her in the kitchen, papers spread across the table. She wasn't crying. Dorothy doesn't cry easily, but her face was pale. How much? I asked. She looked up at me. $156,800. The room tilted. I gripped the back of a chair. Over 3 years, she continued, her voice mechanical. Small amounts at first, then bigger, then systematic. Every month, like clockwork, right after our deposits. I sat down. Couldn't stand any more. Victor, Dorothy's hand covered mine. There's more. More? She pulled out another sheet. This is an application for a line of credit. $30,000 in your name. I looked at it. My signature at the bottom. Except it wasn't my signature. Close, but not quite. The insurance adjuster in me saw it immediately. The angle of the V, the loop in the Q. Someone had practiced, but not perfectly. He forged my signature. Dorothy nodded. We sat there in our kitchen. The same kitchen where we'd fed Quentin breakfast before school. Where we'd helped him with homework. Where we'd celebrated his graduation, his engagement, his wedding. The same kitchen where we'd trusted him with access to everything we had. "What do we do?" I finally asked. Dorothy looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd only seen a few times in 44 years, that steel core underneath the warmth. "We're not victims," she said quietly. "We're not going to be victims." "Dorothy?" "No." She stood up, started gathering the papers. "You spent 40 years investigating fraud. I spent 30 years dealing with people who thought they could lie to me. We're not defenseless. We're not helpless." She was right. We weren't. "What are you thinking?" I asked. She looked at me, and slowly she smiled. Not a warm smile. A sharp one. "I'm thinking," she said, "that if Quentin wanted to play with our money, we should let him. For just a little bit longer? I don't understand." "You will." She squeezed my shoulder. "Call Jerry. Tell him we need to see him tomorrow. And Victor?" "Yeah?" "Don't contact Quentin. Not yet. We need a plan first." I nodded. After 44 years, when Dorothy gets that look, I know to listen. That night we sat on the porch again. The desert air was cool, stars bright overhead. I reached over, took her hand. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For seeing this. For being strong when I couldn't be." She squeezed my fingers. "We're a team, Victor. We always have been, and we're not going to let anyone, not even our son, destroy what we've built." I pulled her close. Out in the darkness, my ham radio antenna stood silhouetted against the sky. All those connections I made with strangers around the world, and I'd almost missed what was happening right in front of me. But Dorothy hadn't. She never did. "So we fight back?" I asked. "Together," she said. "Always together." Jerry Mills sat across from us in his office on Central Avenue, fingers steepled, reading through Dorothy's documentation. She'd organized everything by date, transaction type, amount. Color-coded tabs marked the worst offenses. "This is thorough," Jerry said finally. "Dorothy, you missed your calling. You should have been a forensic accountant." My wife smiled. "I just document family history." "This is family history, too. Just not the kind I want to remember." Jerry's expression darkened. "Victor, Dorothy, this isn't just theft. With the forged signature on the credit application, we're looking at felony fraud. Elder financial abuse. In Arizona, that's serious." "How serious?" I asked. "Prison time serious. 3 to 7 years, possibly more." He leaned forward. "But here's what I need you to understand. If we move forward, there's no going back. Quentin will have a criminal record. Your relationship with him will be permanently damaged." Dorothy and I looked at each other. We'd discussed this on the porch the night before, talked until the stars came out. "He already damaged it," Dorothy said quietly, "when he chose to steal from us." Jerry nodded slowly. "Then here's what we do. First, we need to cut off his access without alerting him. Open a new account. Redirect your pension deposits. Leave the old account with minimal balance." "How minimal?" I asked. "Enough that it doesn't look suspicious immediately. Say $130. When the next pension deposit doesn't show up, he'll notice. That's when things get interesting." "Interesting how?" Dorothy asked. Jerry smiled grimly. "People show their true nature when money disappears. We document that nature. Video, audio if possible. Every threat, every admission. Then we hand it all to the police with a bow on top." 2 days later, Dorothy and I sat in the Wells Fargo office on the 17th floor downtown. Yvonne Chen reviewed the new account setup. "Your pension will redirect here starting with the next deposit cycle," she confirmed. "That's in about 2 weeks. The old account will receive no new funds." "And the balance in the old account?" I asked. $127. Yvonne hesitated. "Mr. Quinn, may I ask why you're doing this?" Dorothy's hand found mine under the table. We're protecting our retirement, she said simply. Yvonne didn't press. She'd been in banking long enough to recognize elder abuse when she saw it. That afternoon, I installed a security camera above our front door. Dorothy watched from the doorway. You think they'll come here? She asked. When the money doesn't show up? I adjusted the angle. They'll come, probably angry. Good, she said, that steel edge in her voice again. Let them be angry. Let them show everyone exactly who they are. I climbed down from the ladder and looked at my wife. She stood there in her gardening clothes, silver hair pulled back, looking like the same woman I'd married 44 years ago. But there was something different now, something harder. You okay with this? I asked. She nodded. I spent 30 years teaching children that actions have consequences. It's time our son learned that lesson. The waiting was the hardest part. 2 weeks of normal life, knowing what was coming. Quentin called twice, his usual charming self. Hey, Dad, just checking in. You and Mom doing okay? We're fine, son, I said, watching Dorothy organize her documentation at the kitchen table. Just fine. He had no idea. The pension deposit hit our new account on a Thursday morning. Dorothy checked her phone, then looked at me across the breakfast table. It's done, she said. I nodded. Now we wait. We didn't have to wait long. Friday morning, 6:15. The doorbell didn't ring, it was pounded. Then the door itself shook. Dorothy was already up, dressed. We'd both expected this. I grabbed my coffee and walked to the door. Through the security camera display on my phone, I could see Quentin and Kimberly. His face was red, her perfectly made-up features twisted with rage. I opened the door. They exploded into the house before I could speak. Quentin grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to hurt. Where is it? He demanded. Where's the money? Kimberly pushed past us into the living room, her designer bag swinging. The account's empty. What did you do? Dorothy appeared in the hallway, calm as a summer morning. Good morning, Quentin. Kimberly. Don't good morning us. Kimberly whirled on her. You ruined everything. The mortgage payment bounced. Our car payment bounced. Do you have any idea what you've done? I pulled my arm free from Quentin's grip. What we've done? That's interesting phrasing. Dad, this isn't funny. Quentin's voice cracked. We need that money. Now, give us the PIN for the new account. New account. I kept my voice level. What new account? Don't play stupid. Kimberly's screech could have shattered glass. You moved the money. You moved our money. Dorothy stepped forward. Your money? That's our pension, our Social Security. Money we earned over 40 years of work. You promised to help us. Kimberly's face was scarlet. You're our parents. You're supposed to take care of us. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Take care of you? Quentin, you're 39 years old. We built our life around that income. Quentin's voice rose. The villa in Scottsdale, the cars, everything. You can't just cut us off. Built your life around it, I repeated slowly. Around our pension, our money. Dorothy's voice cut through like a knife. You were never supposed to have access to our money, Quentin. You were supposed to help us pay our bills. Not steal from us to fund your lifestyle. The word steal hung in the air. Kimberly lunged toward Dorothy. I stepped between them, but my wife didn't flinch. She stood her ground, chin up, eyes hard. We didn't steal anything, Kimberly shrieked. You gave us access. That makes it ours. Actually, I said quietly, that makes it theft. Quentin grabbed my shoulders, shoved me back against the wall. You ruined us. You destroyed our life. Give us the access codes now. Above us, the camera recorded everything. Quentin's hands on my shoulders felt like a stranger's. This wasn't my son. This was someone I didn't recognize. Quentin, I kept my voice steady. Take your hands off me. Not until you fix this. His face was inches from mine. You're going to call the bank right now and transfer everything back. Dorothy moved closer. Quentin, step away from your father. Shut up, Kimberly rounded on her. This is your fault. You poisoned him against us. You always hated me. I never hated you, Dorothy said calmly. I just saw you clearly. Kimberly's perfectly manicured hand shot out, finger jabbing toward Dorothy's face. You miserable old... I pushed Quentin back, put myself between Kimberly and my wife. Enough! Both of you, get out of our house. We're not leaving without access to that account, Quentin's voice cracked. Do you understand what you've done? The late fees alone will destroy our credit. Your credit? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. You forged my signature on a $30,000 credit line. You want to talk about credit? Quentin went pale. How did we know? Dorothy finished. Because we're not the senile old fools you apparently think we are. Kimberly pulled out her phone, started jabbing at the screen. I'm calling our lawyer. You can't do this. You can't just steal from us. The irony was almost funny. Call whoever you want, I said, but get out of our house. Now. We're not going anywhere, Quentin grabbed for my arm again. Not until what? Dorothy's voice was ice. Until you what, Quentin? Hit your father? Threaten us? Go ahead. The camera's getting all of this. They both froze, looked up, saw the security camera for the first time. Kimberly's face went from red to white. You're recording this? Safety measure, I said. You know, in case of burglars. Or people who break into our home and make threats. Quentin stepped back, hands dropping. I saw the calculation in his eyes, the realization of what he'd just done, what he'd just said, all on camera. Dad, wait, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. I straightened my shirt where he'd grabbed it. You meant every word. You're angry because we stopped you from stealing from us. That's what this is about. It's not stealing when you gave us access. Kimberly was still trying to salvage this. Any court will see that. Dorothy pulled out her phone, showed them something. Any court will also see that over 3 years, you withdrew $156,800 from our accounts. Systematically, regularly, while hiding it from us. Kimberly's mouth opened, closed, nothing came out. You've been tracking it? Quentin's voice was barely a whisper. Every transaction, Dorothy confirmed. Every dollar, every lie. The fight drained out of them. Kimberly grabbed Quentin's arm. We need to leave. Now. Call Mason, call your uncle. Call someone who can fix this. They headed for the door. Quentin turned back, one last try. Dad, please, if you do this, if you report this, I'll go to prison. Is that what you want? Your own son in prison? I looked at this man, my son, the boy who used to wait for me by the window, the kid who'd cried when his goldfish died, the teenager who'd borrowed my truck and returned it with a full tank and a thank you note. What I want, I said slowly, is for you to understand that when you steal from people, there are consequences, even if those people are your parents. You'll regret this, Kimberly hissed. We'll sue you for everything you have. Dorothy smiled, actually smiled. Please do. Discovery will be fascinating. They left. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the frame. Dorothy and I stood in the sudden silence. I could hear my own heartbeat, smell Kimberly's expensive perfume still hanging in the air. You okay? Dorothy asked. I nodded. Wasn't sure if I was lying. She took my hand, led me to the couch. We sat. I realized I was shaking. That was our son, I said. I know. He was going to hit me. I know. Her voice was gentle. Victor, look at me. I did. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. We're doing the right thing, she said. This isn't about revenge, and it's about stopping them before they drain us completely, before they destroy us. I know, I rubbed my face. Doesn't make it easier. No, she agreed. It doesn't. My phone buzzed. A text from Jerry Mills. Got your message. Coming over. Don't touch anything. 20 minutes later, Jerry sat in our living room, reviewing the camera footage on my phone. Behind him, Dorothy had already printed out transaction records, her chronological documentation, copies of the forged credit application. This is good, Jerry said. Very good. The threats, the physical contact, the admission that they've been using your money for their lifestyle. He looked up at us. You ready for what comes next? What does come next? I asked. We file a police report. Financial elder abuse, fraud, forgery. I'll call a detective I know in the financial crimes unit. With this evidence, they'll likely make an arrest within 48 hours. Dorothy's hand found mine, squeezed. Do it, she said. Jerry made the call, spoke for maybe 5 minutes, hung up. Detective Richard Sullivan will be here in 30 minutes, he said. He's bringing the paperwork for the complaint. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. Dorothy made coffee. Jerry reviewed documents. I sat at the kitchen table, remembering Quentin as a child. Couldn't reconcile that kid with the man who'd shoved me against a wall. The doorbell rang. This time, it was actually a ring. Detective Sullivan was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes that cataloged everything. Jerry introduced us, then handed over the folder. Sullivan went through it methodically, read every page, watched the video twice. "Mr. and Mrs. Quinn," he said finally, "I need you to understand what happens if we move forward with this. Your son and his wife will be arrested. They'll be charged with multiple felonies. This will be public record. Your family will know. Your friends will know." "We understand," Dorothy said. Sullivan nodded. "Then let's begin." We gave our statements, signed the complaint, provided copies of everything. Sullivan's expression never changed, but I saw something in his eyes when he reviewed the forged signature. Recognition. He'd seen this before. "We'll execute the arrest warrant tomorrow morning," Sullivan said, standing. "I'll call you when it's done." After he left, Jerry packed his briefcase. "You two should try to rest. Tomorrow's going to be difficult." Rest. Right. That night, Dorothy and I sat on the back porch, our usual spot, but nothing felt usual. "Second thoughts?" she asked quietly. "A million of them." I looked at her. "You?" "Not one." She leaned against me. "He made his choice, Victor. Over and over, for 3 years, he chose to steal from us. This is just the consequence of that choice." I pulled her close. Overhead, stars wheeled through the desert sky. Somewhere out there, Quentin and Kimberly were probably panicking, calling lawyers, trying to figure out how to fix this. They had no idea it was already over. "Tomorrow," I said. "Tomorrow," Dorothy agreed, and we waited for the sun to rise. Detective Sullivan called at 9:30 the next morning. "It's done," he said. "They're in custody." Dorothy was standing next to me. I put the phone on speaker. "Where?" I asked. "The villa in Scottsdale. Neighbors got quite a show. 2 patrol cars, handcuffs, the works." Sullivan's voice was neutral, professional. "They'll be arraigned this afternoon. Bail will likely be set at $50,000 each." After he hung up, Dorothy and I stood in the kitchen. The morning light came through the window, made patterns on the floor. Our coffee had gone cold. "It's really happening?" she said quietly. I pulled her close. "Yeah, it is." She pressed her face against my shoulder. I felt her trembling. "We did the right thing," I said. Wasn't sure if I was convincing her or myself. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello?" "How could you?" A woman's voice, high-pitched and furious. "How could you do this to your own son?" Dorothy looked up from her book, eyebrows raised. "Who is this?" I asked. "Janine, Kimberly's sister. You just destroyed 2 lives. Over what? Money?" "They were trying to help you manage your finances." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Help us manage our finances. Is that what Kimberly told you?" "She said you're senile, that you don't understand what you're doing, that they were just trying to take care of you." "Janine," I cut her off. "They stole $156,800 from us over 3 years. They forged my signature on a credit application. They threatened us in our own home. These are facts, documented, on video." Silence on the other end. "If you don't believe me," I continued, "wait for the trial. It'll all be public record." "You're a monster," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm just someone who refused to be a victim." I hung up, looked at Dorothy. She was watching me, that mix of sadness and steel in her eyes. "She called you senile," Dorothy said. "She did." "The nerve." Dorothy shook her head. "After what they did?" My phone started ringing again. Different number. I declined the call, then another. "Turn it off," Dorothy suggested. I did. That night, lying in bed, Dorothy whispered in the darkness, "Do you think we're bad people?" I thought about it, really thought. "We gave him every advantage," I said finally. "Love, education, support. We would have helped him if he'd asked, but he chose to steal, to lie, to forge my signature." I turned to look at her. "The consequences he's facing, those are his, not ours." "I know," she said, "but he's still my son." "Mine too." I squeezed her hand. "This doesn't stop being hard just because it's right." The next morning, Jerry called. They made bail. Kimberly's parents posted the bond. "Both of them?" "Both. They're out as of an hour ago." Jerry paused. "There's a no-contact order in place. If they try to reach out to you, call the police immediately." "Understood." Victor, there's something else. The prosecutor's office wants to meet with you and Dorothy. They're adding charges. The investigation turned up more. Dorothy was watching me. I mouthed prosecutor at her. What kind of more? I asked. The forged signature on the credit line? That's federal. Interstate fraud. The prosecutor found evidence they've been doing this with credit cards too. Applying in your name, using your information. We're looking at potential identity theft charges now. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How much? In credit card debt under your name? About $32,000. Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. She'd heard. Jesus, I breathed. The good news, Jerry continued, is this strengthens our case considerably. The bad news is it's going to get uglier before it gets better. We met with the prosecutor, Sarah Chen, the following week. Her office was downtown, 15th floor, with a view of the city. She was maybe 40, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Quinn. She shook our hands. Thank you for coming in. We sat. Dorothy pulled out her folder. She'd brought copies of everything. Always prepared. Sarah spread documents across her desk. Detective Sullivan's investigation has revealed a pattern of financial fraud spanning 3 years. Beyond the direct theft from your accounts, your son and daughter-in-law obtained credit cards in your name using forged documents. She showed us applications. My signature, perfectly copied. My social security number, my information. This is identity theft, Sarah said. Federal crime. Combined with elder financial abuse, forgery, and the threats captured on your security camera, we're looking at multiple felony charges. What does that mean? Dorothy asked. In terms of sentencing. If convicted on all charges, Quentin could face 7 to 12 years. Kimberly, slightly less, 5 to 10. Dorothy's face went pale. I took her hand. However, Sarah continued, they've retained counsel, Dylan Wright. He's already reached out about a plea deal. What kind of deal? I asked. Too early to say, but I wanted you to know this is going to be a process. Months, likely. Court dates, testimony, media attention. She looked at us directly. Are you prepared for that? I looked at Dorothy. She looked back at me. 44 years of marriage meant we didn't need words. Yes, we said together. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Dorothy laid out my suit the night before. Navy blue, the one I'd worn to weddings and funerals. I hadn't put on a tie in 3 years. You remember how to do this? She asked, watching me fumble with the knot. Allegedly. She came over, fixed it for me. Her fingers worked automatically. She'd been tying my ties since before Quentin was born. Ready? She asked. No, I admitted. You? Not even a little. She smoothed my lapels. But we're doing it anyway. The courthouse was downtown, old stone building with too many steps. Jerry met us outside. They're already here, he said. Quentin and Kimberly. Their lawyer, too. Dylan Wright? I asked. Jerry nodded. He's good. Aggressive. He's going to try to make this about family dysfunction, not theft. Make you look vindictive. Let him try, Dorothy said quietly. We walked through security, took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Outside courtroom 4B, I saw them. Quentin stood with his back to us, talking to a man in an expensive suit. Wright, presumably. He'd lost weight. His clothes hung loose. Even from behind, I could see the defeat in his posture. Kimberly sat on a bench, scrolling her phone. She looked up as we approached. Her eyes met mine, cold, hateful, not a trace of remorse. Dorothy's hand found mine, squeezed. Quentin turned, saw us. His face crumpled. He took a step forward. Don't, Wright said sharply, catching his arm. No contact, remember? Quentin stopped, just stood there, looking at me, at his mother. I saw his mouth form the word Mom, but no sound came out. Dorothy's grip on my hand tightened. I felt her tremble. Let's go inside, Jerry said gently. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, the seal of Arizona above the judge's bench. We sat behind the prosecutor's table. Quentin and Kimberly sat across the aisle with their lawyer. The bailiff called us to order. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison was 60-ish, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She looked at the paperwork, then at the people in front of her. Case number 2, 025-CR-4782. State of Arizona versus Quentin Michael Quinn and Kimberly Ann Quinn. Charges are elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, and assault. She looked up. Mr. Wright, I understand you're representing both defendants? Wright stood. Yes, Your Honor, and we're prepared to argue that these charges are grossly exaggerated. Save it for trial, Counselor. This is a preliminary hearing. Morrison turned to Sarah Chen. Ms. Chen, your evidence? Sarah stood, began presenting. Bank records, transaction histories, the forged credit application, the security camera footage. When the video played, I heard Dorothy's sharp intake of breath. Watching it again, Quentin's hands on my shoulders, shoving me against the wall. It looked worse than I remembered. Kimberly's face on the screen, twisted with rage. You ruined us! The courtroom was silent except for the audio. Quentin's voice. You destroyed our life. Wright tried to object. Your Honor, this is clearly a heated family dispute. A heated family dispute where your client physically assaulted his father? Morrison's voice was ice. Sit down, Mr. Wright. The video ended. Morrison looked at Quentin. Really looked. Mr. Quinn, do you have anything to say? Quentin stood slowly, swallowed. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I know that. But they're my parents. You never meant to steal $156,000 from them? You accidentally forged your father's signature? You unintentionally shoved him into a wall? Quentin's face went red, then white. No, but... Sit down. He sat. Morrison reviewed more documents. The silence stretched. Finally, she looked up. Bail is continued at $50,000 each. No contact order remains in effect. Trial date is set for... She consulted her calendar. 90 days from today. Mr. Wright, Mrs. Chen, work with the clerk on scheduling. The gavel came down. It was over in 20 minutes. Outside the courthouse, Dorothy leaned against me. We stood on the steps, watching people flow past. He looked so... She trailed off. Broken, I finished. Yeah. Good, I said, then... Is that terrible? She thought about it. Probably, but I feel it too. Jerry joined us. That went well. Morrison is no nonsense. She saw through Wright's strategy immediately. What happens now? I asked. We wait. 90 days. Wright will try to negotiate a plea. If they don't take it, we go to trial. He looked at us. How are you holding up? We're okay, Dorothy said. Jerry didn't look convinced. Listen, this is going to get harder before it gets easier. The trial will be public. There will be media. Family members might get involved, try to pressure you to drop charges. We're not dropping them, I said. I know, but it helps to be prepared. That night, Dorothy and I sat on the back porch, our ritual, coffee and stars. He cried when the judge spoke to him, Dorothy said. Did you see? I saw. Part of me wanted to go to him, tell him it would be okay. She looked at me. Does that make me weak? It makes you his mother. I pulled her closer. But you know we can't stop now. I know. She was quiet for a long moment. Victor, when this is over, do you think we'll ever have our son back? I thought about the man in the courtroom, compared him to the boy who used to climb into my lap with picture books. Couldn't reconcile the two. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe we'll have a different version of him. Maybe we won't have him at all. I turned to look at her, but we'll have each other, and our dignity, and that has to be enough. Dorothy nodded, tears on her cheeks catching the starlight. It has to be enough, she agreed, and somewhere in the desert night I hoped it would be. Detective Sullivan called 3 weeks after the preliminary hearing. We need to meet, he said. I found something. Dorothy and I drove to the police station the next morning. Sullivan's office was cluttered with files, coffee cups, a whiteboard covered in flowcharts and numbers. Sit, he said, gesturing to chairs. He pulled up a document on his computer screen. Your son and daughter-in-law have been busy. He showed us credit card statements. Talking Stick Resort Casino. Charges spanning 18 months. $23,000 in losses. Kimberly's, Sullivan said. She has a gambling problem. Used your stolen money to fund it. Dorothy's hand found mine. There's more. Sullivan pulled up another file. They took out loans. 3 different lenders. Told all of them the same story. That you're wealthy. That they're your sole heirs. That you're in poor health, and they'll inherit soon. I stared at the screen. Loan applications. My name listed as their reference. Our modest house described as a family estate worth approximately $1.2 million. We're not wealthy, Dorothy said quietly. I know. They lied. Got about $47,000 in total loans based on these false claims. Sullivan looked at me. This is loan fraud. We're adding charges. How many charges are we at now? I asked. Elder financial abuse, identity theft, forgery, assault, threats, and now loan fraud, and gambling with stolen funds. Sullivan counted on his fingers. If convicted on everything, Quentin's looking at 7 to 12 years, Kimberly 5 to 10. Dorothy went pale. I squeezed her hand. There's something else you should know, Sullivan continued. The story hit the local news yesterday. Channel 12 picked it up. What story? I asked. Elder abuse case involving a son and daughter-in-law stealing from retired parents. They didn't use your names, but... He pulled up a news website. There was the courthouse, our backs visible as we walked in. The headline, Scottsdale couple charged in $200,000 elder abuse case. $200,000? Dorothy frowned. They rounded up. Included the loans and credit cards. Sullivan leaned back. Point is, it's public now. People will know. We drove home in silence. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. Old colleagues, neighbors, people I hadn't talked to in years. I turned it off. That evening, Dorothy found me in my radio room. I was staring at the equipment, not actually transmitting. Victor? I looked up. She was holding a photo album, the old one with pictures from when Quentin was little. I found this in the closet, she said. Opened it. Quentin at 3, covered in mud, grinning. Quentin at 7, missing his front teeth. Quentin at 12, holding his first trophy. I thought looking at these would help, Dorothy said. Remind me of the good times. But it just makes it worse. I pulled her down next to me. We looked at the photos together. He was such a happy kid, she whispered. He was. What happened to him? I thought about it. He grew up, made choices, bad ones. Because of Kimberly? Partly. I closed the album gently. But he's not a child anymore, Dorothy. He chose this. Every withdrawal, every lie, every forged signature, those were his choices. She nodded, tears on her cheeks. 2 days later, Jerry called. Quentin lost his job. The dealership? Yeah. The news coverage. They can't have someone facing felony charges representing their brand. Jerry paused. There's more? They're being evicted from the villa. Can't make the $4,200 a month rent without your money. I should have felt satisfaction. Didn't. Just felt empty. Where will they go? Dorothy asked when I told her. I don't know. Not our problem anymore. But it felt like our problem. How could it not be? A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Dad? Quentin's voice. Broken. Desperate. I should have hung up. The no-contact order was clear. You're not supposed to call me, I said. I know. But please, just listen. Just for 1 minute. Dorothy was watching me. I put it on speaker. We're living in a studio apartment now, Quentin said. 400 square feet. Kimberly's parents won't help anymore. I lost my job. We're drowning, Dad. We're completely destroyed. You destroyed yourselves, I said. I know we did. His voice cracked. But please, can we just talk? Face to face? Work something out? I'll pay back every penny, I swear. Just please don't let this go to trial. Please. Dorothy's eyes met mine. I saw the conflict there. The mother warring with the woman who'd been wronged. No, I said. Dad, you made your choices, Quentin. Now live with them. Don't call this number again. I hung up. Dorothy and I sat in silence. That was hard, she said finally. Yeah, but necessary. Yeah, she took my hand. We're doing the right thing. I wanted to believe her. Mostly I did. That night, Sullivan called again. The prosecutor wants to talk to you. Tomorrow, Dylan Wright proposed a plea deal. Sarah Chen's office, 10 the next morning. She, Jerry, Dorothy, and I sat around her conference table. Wright's offering a deal, Sarah said. Quentin and Kimberly plead guilty to misdemeanor theft instead of felony charges. They repay $100,000 over 5 years. Mandatory counseling, 3 years probation. In exchange, we drop the elder abuse, fraud, and identity theft charges. Jerry looked at us. It's not a bad offer. Guarantees you get some money back. Avoids a trial. 100,000, I said. They stole 156,800. I know, Sarah said, but trials are unpredictable. Juries can be sympathetic, especially to family. This way you're guaranteed a conviction and restitution. Dorothy was quiet. I could see her thinking. Can we discuss it? I asked. Of course. Take your time. Outside, in the hallway, Dorothy and I stood by the window. Downtown Phoenix spread below us. What do you think? I asked. I think... She paused. I think if we take this deal, Quentin learns he can steal from us and get away with a slap on the wrist. But if we go to trial, we might lose. We might, she turned to me, or we might win. And he might actually learn that actions have consequences. I loved this woman. So we counter-offer, I said. We counter-offer, she agreed. Back in Sarah's office, we laid out our terms. We'll accept a plea deal, I said, but not this one. Here's what we want. Full restitution. $156,800, paid over 5 years, recorded confession on video, where Quentin admits exactly what he did, public apology, and a no-contact order for 3 years minimum. Sarah blinked. That's aggressive. So was stealing from us for 3 years, Dorothy said quietly. Jerry was smiling. I'll draft it. Sarah nodded slowly. I'll present it to Wright. But Victor, Dorothy, you need to understand. If he rejects this, we go to trial, and trials are risky. We understand, I said, and you're prepared for that? Dorothy and I looked at each other. 44 years of marriage in that look. Yes, we said together. Sarah sent the counteroffer that afternoon. Wright's response came 2 hours later. Jerry read it to us over the phone. He says, and I quote, "These terms are draconian and unrealistic. My clients cannot possibly agree to such punitive conditions. If the Quinns insist on this vindictive path, we'll see them in court." Vindictive, Dorothy repeated. We're vindictive. What do we do? I asked Jerry. We call his bluff. Tell him fine. See you in court. And if he actually takes us to trial? Then we win. Jerry's voice was confident. Victor, I've seen the evidence. The video alone is damning. Add in the bank records, the forged documents, Sullivan's investigation. Wright knows he's got a weak case. He's hoping you'll blink first. That night, Dorothy and I sat on the porch, our ritual. But nothing felt ritual anymore. What if we lose? She asked. We won't. But what if we do? I thought about it. Really thought. Then at least we tried, I said finally. At least we didn't just roll over and let them win. Is this about winning? No. I pulled her close. It's about dignity. About showing Quentin that he can't just take from us without consequences. About... I trailed off. About what? About not being victims anymore. Dorothy nodded against my shoulder. I'm scared. Me too. But we're doing this anyway. Yeah, we are. 3 days later, Jerry called. Wright blinked. What? He called this morning. His clients will accept your terms. All of them. I sat down. Hard. Victor? You there? Yeah, I'm here. They want to schedule the plea hearing as soon as possible. Quentin's falling apart, apparently. Wright thinks if they wait much longer, his client might have a breakdown. After I hung up, I found Dorothy in the kitchen, told her. She leaned against the counter. They accepted? Everything, full restitution, recorded confession, public apology, no contact for 3 years. We won? She said. We won, I agreed. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like something else. Relief, maybe, or just exhaustion. That night I couldn't sleep. Lay there in the dark, listening to Dorothy breathe beside me. In a week, Quentin would stand in front of a judge and admit what he'd done. Confess to stealing from his parents. Apologize on record. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. Mostly I just felt tired. Dorothy's hand found mine in the darkness. You awake? She whispered. Yeah. Having second thoughts? Million of them. Me too. She squeezed my fingers. But we're still going through with it? I thought about the last 3 months. The discovery, the betrayal, the investigation, the look on Quentin's face when he realized we'd caught him, the fear, then the anger, then the desperation. Yeah, I said. We are. Together? Always together. And in the darkness I felt her smile. The plea hearing was scheduled for the following week. Sarah Chen's office, conference room B. Dorothy wore her navy suit, the one she'd worn to Quentin's wedding. I noticed her hands trembling as she buttoned it that morning. "You okay?" I asked. "Just ready for this to be over." "Me too." We arrived early. Jerry was already there, briefcase open, documents organized. Sarah nodded at us as we entered. "They'll be here in 10 minutes," she said. "Are you prepared for this?" I looked at Dorothy. She nodded. "Yeah," I said. "We are." When Quentin walked in, I barely recognized him. He'd aged 10 years in 3 months. Gray at his temples, deep lines around his eyes. The expensive suit hung loose on his frame. Kimberly followed, still beautiful, still perfectly put together, but her eyes were cold, empty. She looked at us like we were obstacles, not people. Wright came last, carrying files. He nodded professionally at Jerry, ignored us completely. The court reporter set up her equipment. Sarah distributed copies of the plea agreement. "We're here to formalize the agreement between the state of Arizona and defendants Quentin Quinn and Kimberly Quinn," Sarah began. "Mr. Quinn, are you prepared to make your statement?" Quentin stood. His hands shook. He pulled out a paper, started reading. "I, Quentin Michael Quinn, admit that for 3 years I systematically stole money from my parents, Victor and Dorothy Quinn. I used access they gave me in good faith to withdraw $156,800 from their accounts without permission. I used this money for personal expenses, gambling, and living beyond my means." His voice cracked. He paused, swallowed. "I forged my father's signature on a credit application for $30,000. I lied to lenders about my parents' financial situation to obtain loans. When my parents discovered what I'd done and cut off my access, I went to their home and threatened them. I physically assaulted my father." Dorothy's hand found mine under the table, squeezed. "I apologize to my parents for betraying their trust, for stealing from them, and for the pain I've caused. I accept full responsibility for my actions." He sat, wouldn't look at us. "Ms. Quinn?" Sarah prompted. Kimberly stood, no trembling, no emotion. "Husband to take money without permission. I encouraged my husband to take money without permission. I used stolen funds for personal expenses and gambling. I apologize for my actions." She sat, still didn't look at us. Sarah laid out the plea agreement. Full restitution of $156,800, paid monthly over 5 years, at $2,613 per month, 500 hours of community service each, 3 years of probation, no contact with victims without legal supervision. Violation of any terms results in immediate reinstatement of all felony charges. Do you understand these terms? "Yes," Quentin whispered. "Yes," Kimberly said flatly. "Do you accept them voluntarily?" "Yes." "Yes?" They signed. Dorothy and I signed. The court reporter documented everything. It was over in 30 minutes. As we stood to leave, Quentin approached. Wright tried to stop him, but Quentin shook him off. "Dad," he said, tears streaming down his face, "I'm so sorry. I know those are just words, but I destroyed everything. I destroyed us. I'm sorry." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, celebrated every birthday, the man who'd stolen from us, lied to us, assaulted me. "Quentin," I said. My voice was calm, cold. "I would have given you everything if you'd just asked honestly. But you chose to steal, to lie, to betray us. I know. Now you have to live with that choice. For the next 5 years, you'll pay back what you took. Maybe longer, given your current employment situation. Every month, that payment will remind you of what you did, of who you became." He flinched like I'd hit him. "I hope someday you understand," I continued, "that love isn't permission. That family isn't an ATM. That trust, once broken, doesn't just come back because you're sorry." "Dad, please." Dorothy stood, looked at Quentin with those eyes that had seen him through every stage of his life. "We love you," she said quietly. "We always will. But we can't trust you. Not anymore. And until you understand why, until you really understand what you've done, there's nothing more to say." Quentin broke, literally crumpled, Wright catching him. Kimberly watched it all with dead eyes. Then she stood, walked past us without a word. Outside in the parking lot, Dorothy and I stood by our car, silent. That was hard, she said finally. Hardest thing I've ever done, but necessary. Yeah, I pulled her close. You okay? No, but I will be. She looked up at me. We did the right thing, right? We did what we had to do. That's all we can do. We drove home in silence, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of two people who'd just finished a long, difficult journey together. 2 months later, early December, the first payment arrived on the first of the month. I checked our account that morning. $2,613. Exactly on time. Dorothy came up behind me, looked over my shoulder. He paid, she said. He did. Detective Sullivan called that afternoon. Thought you'd like to know. Quentin's working double shifts. Warehouse during the day, security guard at night, 6 days a week. And Kimberly? I asked. Filed for divorce, moved to California last week. Her sister took her in. After I hung up, I told Dorothy. She left him, Dorothy said. Of course she did. Love of his life, I said dryly, until the money ran out. That evening, Dorothy and I sat on the back porch. Our ritual, the one we'd maintained through everything. It was cold for Phoenix, mid-50s. We had blankets, hot chocolate instead of coffee. The Christmas lights on the neighbor's house twinkled in the darkness. Do you think he'll ever understand? Dorothy asked. Really understand what he did? I thought about it. I don't know. I hope so. But whether he does or doesn't, we did what we had to. We protected ourselves. We demanded justice. We showed him that love has limits. She leaned against me. That's important too, isn't it? That love has limits? Yeah, it is. She was quiet for a moment. I still think about him. The little boy he was. Wonder where we went wrong. We didn't go wrong. He made choices. Bad ones. I know. But still? I pulled her closer. Dorothy, we gave him everything we had. Love, support, education, values. He chose to ignore all of it for money and status. That's on him, not us. She nodded. You're right. I know you're right. I reached over, turned on my ham radio. Tuned to the frequency I'd been monitoring. Voice came through, Australian accent. K7VQ, this is VK2RH. Do you copy? I picked up the mic. VK2RH, this is K7VQ. Good to hear you, mate. How's the weather down under? We chatted for 20 minutes. Dorothy smiled, listening. When I signed off, she said, You're still building connections halfway around the world. Someone has to. Even when the closest connection broke. Especially then. She pulled out her genealogy album, the one she'd been keeping since before Quentin was born. I watched her add new pages. Not about him. About us. What are you writing? I asked. She showed me. Our story. The last 6 months? Not the betrayal. That wasn't worth preserving. But the fight. The solidarity. The partnership. This is what I want to remember, she said. Not that our son betrayed us, but that we stood together, that we didn't let it break us. I looked at the pages, her neat handwriting documenting our transformation, from victims to fighters, from the betrayed to the vindicated. You know what I realized? I said. Through all of this? What? That we're one of the strongest teams I've ever known. 44 years of marriage, and I'm just now realizing how truly unbreakable we are. Dorothy smiled. I knew. I've always known. Of course you have. I kissed her forehead. You're the smart one. And you're the stubborn one who doesn't give up. Good thing we're on the same team, she laughed. Really laughed. First time in months. We sat there until the stars came out, made plans for next year. Maybe that trip to the Grand Canyon we'd been talking about. Maybe just quiet time at home. Together. Our money was back under our control. Our dignity restored. Our lives, once again, our own. Quentin would spend the next 5 years paying back what he stole. Working jobs he hated. Living in a tiny apartment. Dealing with the consequences of his choices. Kimberly was gone. Left him the moment the money stopped. Exactly as Dorothy had predicted she would. And us? We were still here. Still together. Still strong. Dorothy looked at me in the starlight. Do you regret it? Any of it? I thought about the question. Really thought. No, I said finally. We tried to be kind. They mistook kindness for weakness. We showed them the difference. That we did. And I'd do it all again. Every moment. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about revenge. It was about refusing to be victims. It was about standing up for ourselves. Together, I added. Everything we did together. She squeezed my hand. Always together. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 44 years, who'd stood beside me through everything, who'd been strong when I wavered, who'd been steel when I needed support. You know what the best revenge is? I asked. What? Living well, being happy, refusing to let them destroy what we built. Then we won, she said simply. Yeah, I agreed. We really did. The desert night wrapped around us, cool and clear. The same stars that had watched us fall in love 4 decades ago still shone overhead. Somewhere out there, Quentin was working his overnight shift, paying for his choices, learning, perhaps, what we'd tried to teach him his whole life, that actions have consequences. But here, on our porch, in our home, with our dignity intact, we were fine, better than fine. We were exactly where we belonged, together. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.